Hello everyone, welcome back to Apex Hours. This is the continuation of our MuleSoft for Salesforce Developers series. My name is Ron Lingam. I am a senior MuleSoft developer and integration architect with overall 8 plus years of experience. So I don't want to waste more time on introducing myself because we have already completed 2 sessions. And let's see the today's agenda. One is, as usual, we always recap of our previous session, and then we will be discussing about our first phase, that is designing APIs. I will show you the life cycle at the end of these sessions. Usually people, they start with API life cycle management cycle, starting with design, develop, deploy, test, all this stuff. But what I will do is I will start off now and I will show you the life cycle at the end, so that it will be easier for you to remember. So the first phase of API life cycle management is designing, and I will tell you why we need to design an API and what is an API specification. Then design center, one of our features of AnyPoint platform. Then creating an API, small API using RAML, and then I will try to explain you the basics of RAML. We are not going to deep dive into RAML because it's huge, right? So I will show you few things that it will help for you to get started with designing RAML, and then I will share you to show you how to publish to Exchange, and then I'll show you what is help.mulesoft.com. Generally, help.mulesoft.com is a forum where it is available for the public to post their questions, or you can also find your questions over there with answers. So it will be really useful. So if you got stuck anywhere, feel free to post your question in help.mulesoft.com. Now I will just quickly discuss about what we have done in our previous session. API-led connectivity approach, we have discussed about it, and we have discussed all 3 layers: system, process, and experience layers, and examples. And now AnyPoint platform we have discussed. I think this is the same. In the last session I have missed this slide, but I wanted to give you an overview that what is AnyPoint platform. As I mentioned earlier, it is one-stop platform for APIs. So design center we will be using for designing and developing the APIs, which we will be covering in this particular session. AnyPoint Exchange, it is a place where we will be able to share or discover or reuse the assets. And API manager, it helps in managing our APIs by invoking, means applying the policies. Runtime manager is the place where you deploy your applications. And access management, you can do configuration of your access permissions with organization. And AnyPoint monitoring or visualizer, it will help provides the monitoring and real-time graphical representation of APIs, it's more kind of statistics. Then secret manager, it is a place where to store and control the access, to private keys, passwords, certificates, etc. So this is just a quick recap of AnyPoint platform. Now coming to our designing phase, before discussing what is what is designing of a RAML or designing of an API, what is API specification? That is very important. Okay, API specification provides an understanding of how your API behaves. Specification itself means you have for example, you are buying a laptop. Okay, you don't just buy a laptop by going into the store and looking at the laptop, isn't it? So first what we will do, we will see the specifications of the laptop, how much RAM it contains, how much hard disk it contains, what is the core, whether it is Intel 7th gen or 5th gen. These are called specifications, right? When you are buying a product, you will be having a specification. Just like if you want to purchase a TV, you will see whether it is a LED TV or OHD, or it's 43 inches or 70 inches of TV. So all these are specifications. That means even before purchasing or even before using anything, we will always go with specifications, right? In the same way, consider you are developing an API, you have developed an API, right? We don't just go ahead and develop an API, okay? We have to specify and the requirements of an API, what, as I have already discussed, a web service or something, it will have a request, it will have a response, and what kind of details it needs in the request. So that is what we are talking about, API specification. So it shows the understanding of how your API behaves. As I said, what kind of request it accepts, okay, what kind of response it will return when you're consuming that API, and what are the mandatory fields. For example, you are creating a login, login API, right? So usually you know that username and password are mandatory. So you will design an API which like username and password are mandatory fields, something like that, right? So what kind of request it accepts, what kind of response it returns, and what are the mandatory fields, or what is the data type. Data type here means whether it is a string or number or JSON or array, all this kind. And is there any security like authentication or authorization? All these details we have to specify. When I use specify, that's what specification. All right, and let's see a small example of constructing a building. Okay, so you must understand by now that API specification, just imagine like you're buying a product. Without looking at the specification, we won't go ahead and buy the product. Likewise, when you are creating an API, you won't directly consume, or you just utilize that API without looking at the specifications. So you all know that whenever we are constructing a new home or new building, we all know that, for example, you want to have a building something like this that you are seeing on the screen. But do we just start our building by constructing it right away without any specifications or without any blueprint? No, right? So the first thing that you will do is you will create a blueprint, okay, which has the specifications of that building. Now imagine like it is an API, your building is an API, and request, response, all this stuff are something like, how much square feet you have to align for a hall or a bedroom or a kitchen or the lawn. All these specifications you will first picturize those things. Okay, you will sit down, talk with the business. I am talking in general terms. Okay, you talk with your friends or architect, sit down and design your building, the architecture of the building. Likewise, when you are developing an API, you have to sit with your architects, with the business analysts, because we are dealing with. So if, as I said already, like whenever you are creating an API, that means there is a requirement for someone to use it. So sit with them, with business analysts, with architects. You have to figure out like what kind of request you need to accept, what kind of response it has to give, what needs to be done. Likewise here, before constructing the building, what you will do, you will be creating a blueprint of your building, then approach to an architect. In this case, like probably you need a permission from the municipality to get it approved, right? So likewise, in API terms, you will be approaching your architect to approve it. So you will show them. That's where once you design your RAML, then the next step would be like publishing to Exchange, so that will be visible for everyone, all the stakeholders, and they will see and look that if everything looks good. If everything looks good, then only you will start developing an API. In this case, in this example, once the blueprint is done, then you will start constructing the building. Constructing of building, just imagine developing an API, right? So there is a phase before developing an API, okay, that you have to design a API, that is like API specification, then provide it to your architect or whoever approves that. Once everything looks good, then only you will publish to Exchange and then start the development. And then once everything looks good, yes, we will be developing an API how you want, right? So imagine that API specification is a blueprint of API, just like how we have a blueprint of our building. Okay, so, and as I said, MuleSoft is famous because it is a one-stop platform for API management lifecycle, and that is why one of the feature that we have in AnyPoint platform is designing APIs. Okay, so we will use this feature of design center in the AnyPoint platform to design your APIs. So what is design center again? It is like API designer, which helps us to create a API specification in RESTful API modeling language, which we call in short RAML. This is what RAML is. So API designer means the same developer will be designing the API. Okay, and to help us to create the API specification, what we need to create now? API specification. How to create? You need to write a language, right? You need some language to write it, just like HTML. For web designers, they need to write HTML or JavaScript. Some language should be there, right? So for us, we have separate language called RAML, RESTful API modeling language. Okay, so we are concentrating on, there are other couple of things where you can design the API, but we are mainly concentrating on RAML. Okay, and it supports the current design center supports RAML 0.8 and RAML 1 version. I always go with the latest version because it has all updated things. And it also supports, I told, it also supports OAS 2.0 and 3.0 version, both YAML and JSON. People who are from other backgrounds like Java, you must be familiar with OAS. So OMS is kind of like where you will write the API specification in YAML and JSON type. But RAML is kind of advanced version of YAML. Okay, it looks like a YAML type. Again, people who are new to this YAML terms and JSON term, it's just like a specific, you know, how you mark up the language. We use markup language, right? That means it has a structure. Okay, it's like how you are writing your code. That is called like, you know, YAML or RAML. This is the way you write it. Okay, XML, except XML is also a language, right? You have some tags and all. Likewise, this is more easier. YAML, JSON, RAML are more easier to understand. Okay, that is what this structures means. Okay, it also supports, but OS is not in our scope. We will be using RAML for our sessions. Now, after creating API specification, it can be published to API Exchange so that it is available to your organization. As I said, like, you know, when you have your blueprint and all, you will go to the municipality office to get it approved. So this is the same case here. Okay, now the main things in design, so it is very simple. Don't take it too complicated when you are doing it, but if you understand in an easier manner and if you keep some points in your mind step by step, it will be easy for you to understand. Now, for any API, if you recall my session 1 or session 2, I have told you that web services or API, for anything I have shown you in the URL, right? There is a resource. Whatever is there after DNS, it is called as a resource. Resource is kind of like, you know, you have some task to perform. To perform that task, someone has to call. You have to give it a name. Okay, that name is nothing but a resource. So it is the unique name that we give to identify a resource. For example, get order details, that is a resource name. Create order, it is another resource name. So that is called resource. Next, method. For every web services, I think I have explained you this in our very first session or second session. For every API, there is a method that we have to assign, whether it is a get, post, put, delete. As I told you like before, that we have some standards that we have to follow. All right. Next, request. This is very important. So you can send, suppose if there is any input that it is required from the consumer. Okay, for example, you need to get account details of a customer. So for that we need a bank account number, right? So without bank account number, it cannot give all the bank details, isn't it? So for that, what you need? Bank account number. So who will be providing the bank account number? The customer. So now you have to design an API that you will be accepting a bank account number. Okay, but the question is how you want to pass that bank account number is a question. So we have 4 different ways where you can pass your request. That is called request. Okay, so request details you can pass either through a body or query parameters or URL parameters. You have to discuss with your stakeholders and check with the best practices how you can send it in any form, but following the best practices and some standards will always help you. So that is called request. In this case, if you take the example of bank account number, sending a bank account number is a kind of request. All right, so yes, once you send the bank account number, what is the customer expecting? He is expecting the account summary details, right? So that is called response, right? So response is like response body and response type. We will be discussing about that. So API has all these things: resource, method, request, response, and for every response there is a HTTP status code, whether it is success, because that is also a standard. Okay, if someone sees like 200, that means okay, you are fetching some details. 201 is also like 200 series is always a success, but it differs like 200, 201. It depends upon the type of standards or the type of work you are doing. If you are getting something, okay, if you're fetching something, that is like 200 status. If you're creating something, if you're signing up to an account, or if you're creating a new account, that is like you're creating something, so that comes under 204. These are all standards. Okay, and please to remember, this is very important, and even it is important for certification purpose. No two resources can have same name and method. I'll show you the example here, but please understand resources is the name of your the task that you're doing, and that should not have the same name. For example, get order details, you cannot have two get order details, like get method get order details, another get method get order details, but you can have one get method get order details and another post method get order details, but method should not be same with the same name of resource. Right, so I will try to walk you through the website again about I have shown you this in our very first example. So let's go there and see. So bbc.com, right? So I wanted to show you that again, this is a URL which has everything. DNS, we call it as DNS. This is the protocol because it is a web service. Now when I click on sport, here the resource name is sport / resource is the sport. So that is how, like for every resource there is something happening in the background and it is giving the result here. If I click on like work life, you can see the resource name change. That means these people, the BBC people, they have created APIs, they have written, it's nothing is, this is the very important point, people who are beginners or new to coding or APIs, please remember that nothing is automatic in software. Whatever you are writing or whatever you have code, it will display that thing. It will not come out of blue and create something. Work life, because the developer has coded, like there is a resource called work life and it should show the work life news, so that is why it is displaying. What if I change the name, like some blah 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 blah, it says like it's not found. You can see here 404 not found. That is the status. We discussed about status, right? HTTP status codes 200 400. If something is not found, the best practice or standard is to display 404. It can be anything, either page not found, or if you are trying to send the account number which is wrong, it will say like account not found. So all not founds comes under 404 category. But what I wanted to explain you here is bbc.com, like there is a resource and you can pass your details. Now there is another thing also, google.com. okay, google.com, just I will show you the example. Now I wanted to get the details of MuleSoft, right? Now what I will do, I will search for MuleSoft and click enter. Okay, now what is happening, there is a API, Google API, it has a resource name called search. So our task is to, whenever customer sends some request like a search word, it should search for that and return the response. That is the functionality. Now search is the resource name, and I told you, right, for example, bank account number, customer has to send bank account number in any of the forms. So I told you, I gave the example that you can send the request in 4 different forms. One is like body, I will show you how to send it in body. Next, query parameters, URI parameters or headers. So now in this case, I can see my MuleSoft keyword is being sent as query parameter. So these are query parameters. I have explained you, like whatever is there after question mark is a query parameter. So something like Q. Okay, if I change this A equal to MuleSoft, enter, it won't show anything because the developer has created an API only to send the data in the form of Q. Okay, it's like query probably. Got it? So, and now instead of sending, like now I am not searching over here. I know that where it is being passed, and I will change directly here in the URL Shravan Lingam and enter. You can see automatically the Shravan Lingam is populated over here, because I know that how to send the details. So this is how usually APIs work. So we have API specifications, we know API specification by usually we have exchange to see what kind of request that particular API. Now here I understand that there is something called search and it is accepting a field called Q as a query parameter where you need to pass the inputs. Okay, and coming to HTTP cats, this is very interesting website I have gone through. So to understand the concept of status codes, it is the best website. You can see like 200 is like okay, 200 is like okay, and it will explain everything. It will be explained over here. Okay, and 404 is a, like 201 means something is created. All right, likewise 202 is accepted. suppose whenever you have sent a request, you want to create a ticket, it will be accepted. And same thing like if you go with 400, bad request. Whenever you send a request, for example, instead of sending a username and password, you are sending only username but not password, so it is a bad request. So likewise, we have different status codes. So each API should return with a response code, that is mandatory. Response and response codes are mandatory. So whenever you have any doubt regarding any status codes, this is the best website that I can suggest you. Right now that we have gone through the websites, let's get our hands dirty. So we are going to take part of the first phase of API lifecycle, that is designing APIs. Where you can design in anypoint.mulesoft.com, which we call it as AnyPoint platform. Out of that, we are using Design Center. So let's get back to the Design Center. So I have an AnyPoint platform account created already. If you haven't done, please try to create an AnyPoint platform. It is there for 30 days. Free trial is for 30 days. I have given you how to, I have explained you how to create an account in the last session. So as I said, like we have multiple features in AnyPoint platform, out of which Design Center is the very first thing that we will be doing to start designing of our API. Imagine, so try to relate it with the general example, right? Whenever you are designing an designing a API, imagine that before constructing a building, you are designing your architecturing the specification of your building, just like that. So you can click on create, you can see new API specification. There are many things here. These are like for advanced users, but still to get started with, please choose new API specification. Okay, and you have to give your project name. So what I will do is my first project or my first API. Okay, so this is my first API, or I can say like bank detail or bank sys API, because I will connect to a backend system. I wanted to name it like bank sys API. Now probably you might have seen my earlier sessions, like I have done like 2 years back. There is a change in UI. So it is saying like, either if you are not sure, you need some help, you can use this option like guide me through it. So it will try to use a visual interface of scaffolding the API specification and all. If you're comfortable in designing your own, you can choose this option. As I said, like APIs can be created, the API specification can be written in RAML and OS languages. For now, these are the two supported versions. So I will go with RAML 1.0, and this is the scope for our sessions. And just click on create API. Imagine that you are not developing an API. You're not developing an API. You're still in designing phase. Okay, we didn't start anything yet. Okay, so this is how it looks. Okay, Design Center. On the left side, you will be having the name .raml. This is your main file or root file we call. Okay, and here are the suggestions that it will give. So this is very easy. One of the easiest way why I like RAML is like, whenever you're clicking on enter, or whenever you're typing something, it will give you some suggestions. What is the next thing, or what can be placed here. Okay, and on the right side is the documentation. Whatever you write here, it will be documented. I'll show you in an easy way. Okay, so please put your hands and create an account and do hands-on along with me, so that it will be easy for you to understand the concept. So you can see by default RAML 1.0 and title are created automatically. Okay, and hash is something like, it's kind of a commenting out. Okay, so first thing I told you, right, what is required. Okay, we need a resource name. That is the very first thing that we have to do. Okay, so how to name the resource name? For example, I gave you, right, if you go to bbc.com and enter, and if you click on sports, for example, it is giving sports. Similarly, in bank, you want like get account summary. Okay, you can type / get. You can give any name, but that's how the consumer have to call you. Get account summary. He cannot change the name. Okay, it is case sensitive also. If you give a small a and small s, it will not work out. And we call this format as camel case. That is always the best practice. Camel case is something like it starts with a lowercase and the words that are divided will start with the uppercase and enter. It's like how it has the hump of camel. It looks like that. Okay. Now you can see when I typed resource name, automatically the documentation is getting updated on my right side. Okay. So it will show the API endpoints or number of resources that are present in this particular endpoint. Now, RAML is a kind of language that we write. That's what I told, like YAML or JSON. So that means it has some standards. It has some coding, rules, or we call it as indentation. This is a technical term. What is meant by indentation? That means whenever you are writing a resource, and next thing is to define a method. You can see automatically when I click enter, the RAML itself is giving us taking a space here, right? Because it needs an indentation, it has to understand. But if you go ahead and here and give it like get, it will not accept. It is an error. It will accept still, but you can see it is automatically taking a space. When I'm removing the space, it is giving the error, right? So we have to follow this indentations. This is very important, and this is where most of the newbies or beginners will fail, or you will get stuck with. Okay, whenever you are seeing these kind of errors, just click on tab or space. Okay, that's why what I do is wait for the suggestions, click on enter. Automatically it is saying like for the next things you can choose any one of this. For now what I will say, like description, we have to describe something, right? So to get bank account details of a customer, this is just for people who view your API in Exchange, they will understand what it is all about. Okay, now click on enter. Again it will give some suggestions over here. Okay, you can see here. Now as it is get, right, you are getting something. If you want to fetch some details, the standard is to use get method. So get method is always to get something, get already, which is already existing. Okay, then only we will use this get method. Automatically when I clicked get and enter, again indentation, you can see there is a small tab here, right? A space or tab space here. That means it comes, why it is taking indentation means all these details are under get summary, account summary. That is why you need that indentation. And on the right side, as I said, when I keep on writing the code, it keeps on showing. This is very good representation, graphical representation, right? It looks good, like okay, get summary is a get method. Now as I said, for every API there is a resource name, there is a method, right? Two things are done. Where is our slide? So resource, method. What is next one? Request. It is not necessary that you should always have a request. Okay, I will show you that. For now, as I want a get account summary of a customer, individual customer, I want him to pass his account number through query parameters, right? So get, and now it is showing multiple suggestions over here. One is body. Body will be used only for post methods, so I'm not going, that is a standard. If you ask me, Shravan, can't I use body in get method? You can use, but it is not a best practice or not a standard. Okay, and there are other ways, like you can pass, like for example headers, query parameters and all. So I will try to use query parameters. Query parameters is something like this one, right? After question mark, you need to put question mark and pass the here q equal to Shravan. But now in my API, I want someone to send like account number equal to 1234, something like that. So I will type my name. What is the name that I have to pass? Account number. Okay, colon. We have to use this colon. Account number. That means which is similar to this one q here. Okay. If Google has designed like for query, you should pass it like query. Okay, account number, then enter. Then what type of number you want, type, you have to click type. You want to send it as a string or a number. For now I want to send as a number. Okay, always the account number should be a number. Okay, this is the only field that I need to search for the details. So in designing APIs, you are not worried about what is happening in the back end, whether you are connecting to Salesforce, you are connecting to database. You don't have to worry about it. Okay, you have to worry about what is the type of request you send, and after processing, what is the type of response you will be getting. Okay, now that request part is done. Okay, now I have to go to response. Request and response should be on the same line. Okay, query parameters is always request. You can see there is a thin line over here. Now when you go to this line, okay, then there will be another option called responses, because this part request, this part is response. Every request has a response. Then you click on that, I told you, right, resource, method, request, response, and then HTTP status. So as I am getting some details, as I said, according to the standards, it's like 200, or you can type, or you can choose from here itself 200 colon, and automatically it is going to the new line. This is what RAML is doing for you. Okay, and see the indentation. So anything if you do wrong here, like everything will be messed up. Okay, just go with the standards. These are the standards. Now 200. Okay, next output should be a body. Okay, output body, and now you are here, you have to choose what kind of data type your response will show. For now I will go with application JSON format. I will explain you what is a JSON. I will explain you in like data wave session, but for now JSON is like, every JSON has something like key value pair, like you will have a curly braces. Okay, and then for example you have like bank account number 1 2 3 4 5 comma, this is an example that I am going to give. Okay, next name Shravan, country India. Okay, so these are the details that, so now your API specification. Okay, one more thing, I missed something. So this is why you should not miss. I will just copy it for now and delete it. Okay, application JSON and enter. And you have this, whatever I am providing is an example. So even without defining example, I am directly writing it. Right now you can see there is no error. Before there was an error because I am not defining this example here. Clear? So now that, which means now you have created one API, one endpoint, where now you on the right side, when you see, click on the get method. Okay, you can choose the try it options also. So here itself, like it is showing like 1 2 3, it is asking to pass the account number. It's like when you send it, right, this is like mocking. It is not actual development. It is just like for the consumers, he will understand what are the fields that he need to pass and what is the kind of response that he will get. Can you see here, you send the request, you are getting 200. Okay, and you are getting these details. Okay, so this is how you have to create a API specification, and this is for a single resource. Now if you want to create multiple resources, yes, you can do that. How? You can create like create account. I'm creating another one. Okay, enter. Next, description, I will say like to create a new account. Then define the method. Here I wanted to use post because you are creating something. Okay, I will wait for this automatic thing to populate. So create post, and then post means it should have a body. It's not necessary that it should have a body, but best standard is body. Again, if you have a question, Shravan, can I pass only one, either like to pass only query parameters or to pass only URI parameters? No, that is wrong. You can pass any types of any number of like for example, like you can send a query parameter, query parameters with some like branch. Okay, branch colon string, I can define directly as string. Okay, this string, and what I can do, I can send body also, but it should be on the same line. Okay, where query parameters is there, body. Okay, and again I want to send input as a JSON. It's the data type, you have to always specify the data type, and I will give a small example. Okay, in the example what I will do is name Shravan, DOB 27/7/1992. So all these details, for example, I will give only two fields. This is just a API specification and dummy one. Okay, now you have like two requests. one request sent in two different forms. You can do that also. Okay, and here now I need responses, so I am having that in the same line, responses. Now this is something like creating a new one, so according to the best standards, like 201 is the best code for creating. Again, body application JSON, I am not writing much, right? Most of the things are taken care by RAML, so that is why I love it. So example, you can give something like, you know, message colon create, you know, account created. Okay, looks good. Now we have like two different resources. I would say, like, resources means, for example, sport is one resource, news is one resource. Likewise, we have two resources now, like get account summary and create account. And I said, like, if you go to the documentation and click on summary, you can see whatever you are coding is showing as a documented one. And if you click on post, it will show you like what are the mandatory fields, string, all this stuff, right? You can also try it, like send it, branch name like Hyderabad, and if you pass details, you can change the details here itself, like Lingam, and click on send it. It's not like actually it is creating an account, right? It's not actually creating an account, but it's just showing what it is done. Okay, so this is a small example of how to create a API specification. So once it is done, you can, once there are no errors and once it is being reviewed, there is a lot I will discuss in the next session as well, but for now I will stop here. Basics, if you understand, it is fine. So for every API specification, you will be having first the resource name, then the type of method, then the request, response will contain HTTP status code. So this is mandatory for each resource that you are creating. Just like whenever you are going for a building construction, right? It should have a length, width, all those stuff, correct? So I am clicking on publish to exchange, so it will give you the asset versions and all, okay, and API version, and click on publish to exchange. So it will take a few seconds or 1 minute to publish to you can give any kind of version. So why we are publishing to, you can see it is published to exchange. You can click on close, and as I said, another feature of AnyPoint platform is exchange. So this exchange will contain all the published assets, so that this particular you know, exchange, so you can see Banks' API is published here. When you click on this, you can see all the summary. If you click on summary, you can see whatever you have coded, it will show here. Okay, post, it will show. Okay, if someone wants to consume our API, see, imagine that you created this API, and this API should be consumed by 100 customers. Now tell me, do you go to each customer and spend your time in explaining, okay guys, if you want to create an account, go ahead, use post method, use name, date of birth. You can't go to 10 different customers, 100 customers, and explain everything, correct? For that, you have to put your documentation or everything at one place, so that customers can go there and look it. It is readable, right? That is the reason why we are publishing to exchange. So whoever wants to consume it, they will look at this API. Okay, they feel like, okay, there is a resource called create account, and the consumer has to pass these two fields to create an account, and this is how it looks, you know, whenever it is successful, it will show. Here it is not explaining you like which system it is connecting internally and all. It is not required. For a customer, he doesn't get what system, what database or Salesforce you are using. Imagine you are a customer of a bank. Why do you even care that what he is using, which database he is using, right? For him, all it matters is he needs to send some details, which is like request, these two fields here in this case, and how the response you will get. That's it. So that is the purpose of exchange, so that you can look at the API specification. I hope like I have explained you the things in a easier way. Okay, if you have any questions, you can feel free to comment in the chat, and I will just go into a bit deeper in the next session of this designing RAML, and then we will stop there with designing of RAML. But by now, you try to understand what are the things that are required to create an API specification. Okay, so just to summarize what we have discussed so far, What is API specification I have discussed, design center I have discussed, RAML I have discussed, we have seen hands-on. And please post your questions in help.mulesoft.com as well. And don't forget to follow us on Apex servers, and of course my YouTube channel MuleSoft Tech Zone, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. Hope you like this session, and we will come up with more interesting topics in the coming session. Thank you so much.